What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my colleague, Tim Legler. We're going to be previewing the Christmas Day slate. It's our only show before the Christmas Day games. Legler, I understand you're celebrating Christmas today.
I am. We had to do Santa Came Early today for my 3-year-old because my wife and my son are going to accompany me to Boston tomorrow morning. I'm going up there because I'm on the call with Dave Pasch for the Philly-Boston game on Christmas Day, which I'm very excited about. But because of that, it was going to be a kind of an unusual Christmas. We didn't want to kind of do it in a hotel room somewhere. So as far as my son knows, Santa came last night.
There you go. I think you got the best game on the slate. We were wondering about the Sixers and whether, it didn't look like this was going to be a good game a couple weeks ago, but now that Embiid is back and playing pretty well, that game, if I just look at the slate, that one might be the best one on paper.
Well, look, even I would say, it's turning out, maybe you're right. And it's funny because when the schedule came out before the season and we knew what those games were going to be, and at that time, I was still really negotiating a new deal with ESPN. I didn't know to what extent I'd be calling games. I was hoping to call more games. And of course, turns out they decided to put me on a bunch of games. And I was told I was going to get a Christmas Day game. They didn't know which one at first. And Adam, when I saw the schedule, that's the one I wanted. I was like, yeah. I want Philly, Boston, clearly going into the year with what Philly added in Paul George and even Caleb Martin, and they ended up, with a great rookie in McCain. Like, I was excited about them. Of course, we know who Boston is, and that's we don't have a lot of rivalries, if really any, in this league practically. Theirs is decent, and it's more so the cities that don't like each other than it is necessarily the guys on the team. Like, there's not a real rivalry between Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum. It's more like Philly, but it's a Philly-Boston thing. It's similar to Philly-New York thing or New York-Boston thing. Like, those three cities are intertwined. And so whenever their sports teams play each other, it definitely takes on a little bit more of importance. And it's because the fan bases can't stand each other. So I was excited about that particular game. But then, obviously with what happened with Philly, sitting here all year, really like wondering like who's even going to be available for them by the time you get there. And as it turns out, there's a chance you get everybody. And so I'm pretty excited. Yeah, I think we could have ended up with maybe the best game of the day. Now we'll see what the result ends up being. I'd like to get something compelling to call. You don't know what the close games are going to be, but I think you're right. I think on paper, this might be now the best matchup now that Philly's getting some guys back.
The slate is so important for the NBA, the Christmas Day slate. For a lot of fans, just casual sports fans, this is the start of the NBA season. What happened before this was basically the buildup. So you want to have good games. You hope you don't have too many blowouts. In today's NBA, out of 5 games, 2 of them are blowouts. So you hope you don't get that on Christmas so that the NBA can put their best foot forward. On this show, we're going to go through all 5 games, and we're going to talk about the teams that are involved. And we're just going to kind of preview, talk about what's going on with those teams and what we're looking for. And we're going to go in chronological order from when the games occur, which means we're starting with the Spurs and the Knicks. I didn't love this game when it dropped. When we first saw the Christmas slate, I was kind of like, I don't know. But the more I think about it, I think it's great. You have Wembanyama, who's the league's next star. You need him on the big stage. And obviously, he's one of the most fascinating players in the game. And the Knicks, who play a really fun style, obviously you always get that Madison Square Garden. So Wemby going to MSG, that's how you sell this game. But what is it you're looking for in this one?
You know what's interesting about this game? So, and I always have a lot of fun in coming up with what I think the Christmas slate should look like.
Right.
And the 5 games and who plays at home, who plays at what time, what matchups you want to see. It's a lot of fun to sort of do that. And I personally think the best game they could put in the noon slot, and you got to start somebody at noon. Clearly, that has to be an Eastern Conference game.
Right.
I think you have to put that game in Madison Square Garden. They did
Right.
that, but I think the ideal opponent would have been Boston. But I truly believe that they didn't want to put Boston at noon, because that's that game, like people waking up on Christmas Day. There's a lot going on, man. You got people in
Especially
the
the
house.
West
You're opening
Coast.
presents, right? You're eating a meal, usually breakfast, whatever. And it's like maybe by the time people start to really kind of lock in, like, oh, there's some NBA games on, it's a little bit later. So I really think they didn't want to put the Celtics in that spot. So they ended up, well, who can we put there that the fans really want to see, that maybe got to Christmas Day a little sooner than we thought maybe they deserved, but they've got one of the best attractions in the league in Victor Wembanyama. So they end up, you get your game in the Garden, and you get this, really unique force that Wembanyama is on the other side. So I think you actually ended up with a really fun, interesting, and hopefully really entertaining game. And Wembanyama on that stage on Christmas Day in Madison Square Garden, man, that could be something special if he delivers in a big way.
And you're getting him, he's playing some of the best basketball of his career. I know that's saying a lot because he's had some really good runs, but he's coming off of a game with 30 points and 10 blocks, a game before that with 42 points and 7 threes. He's doing stuff, and it's different every night. This is part of what makes Wemby so interesting, is some nights it's 10 blocks, some nights it's the three, some nights it's both, points, rebounds, whatever. And you're getting him against a matchup that I think is really fascinating, because that Knicks offense is tough to guard. And he's the type of guy that can make an impact when you stretch things out, because he covers so much ground. So to me, that's the matchup. It's Karl-Anthony Towns, Victor Wembanyama, whether they're guarding each other or not. It's, can Wemby make a defensive impact against one of the most stretch you out offenses in the NBA?
Yeah, and look, I think when you look at just coming in where these teams are at right now, San Antonio's ahead of the curve. This is a team that's above 500, above 500 a third of the way through the season. Right now, if it were to end today, they're ninth in the West. They're a play-in team right now. I didn't think they could get there this fast. And look, it's early, so who knows where they end up? Did they end up somewhere around 500, north of 500? That'll put them in that mix for that play-in situation. But they're ahead of the curve without a doubt. And they look, last year, I think there was almost an intentionally non-competitive environment because of Wemby and they wanting to deflect sort of attention from him and pressure on him, and him having to feel anything as a foreign-born player coming in with all this hype, not really caring about winning games. It was about his development and looking at some of your other younger pieces. This year was a more conscious decision to move it forward a little bit. By adding some veteran guys to give them a more professionalism, more organization on the court, clearly some leadership at the point guard position, which they didn't really have a year ago. So I look at them right now. They've won 9 out of 14. So they're in a really good stretch, playing really good basketball. You talked about Wembanyama's numbers. He was not great early. I thought he was a little bit passive to start the year. Unfortunately, one of the games I called was against Oklahoma City, and he had 1 for 5 in that game from the field, didn't take a shot in the second half. But from that game on, and he was kind of upset and distraught and dispirited that game. And I saw Pop sort of sternly talking to him that game, halftime or at some point in the second half. From that point on, he has been sensational practically every night. So they're winning games at a higher rate than I expected. They're in a good place. The new additions have helped them out in terms of just their professionalism and approach and maturity to what they're doing. And as a result, San Antonio here, legitimately great shot to be at least in the play-in, with some other teams in the West really struggling right now that we don't know what they're going to end up being. I feel pretty confident. I know what San Antonio is right now, and they're going to be somewhere in that mix, which to me is really impressive.
And I think it's almost, I don't want to say a lock, but it's very likely that they're going to improve as the season goes, just because you can get better in an offseason, legs. But I feel like the young teams, the teams that are 23 years old and under, most of their guys, in season is where you make the big improvement, because you're playing a lot of games. Experience is the best teacher. And I think young players from, October to April make a bigger leap than they do from April to October. So I think you look at that Spurs team and you say there's a lot of guys on there that have been impressive early, that are starting to break out. You even have Sohan playing great defense. You have Vassell. You have Stephon Castle. Like, they have a lot of guys that I think are going to only get better in ways you really notice over these coming months.
And here's one thing that's important to note about them. Like, they're over 500 despite the fact that Vassal's only played 13 games. Sohan's only played 15 games. I mean, these guys have played about half of their games, and they're their second and third leading scorers. And they're still over 500. That's really important to note. If you get a sustained stretch of health now out of all of their top guys, and really everybody like 3 through 9 or 10 has been healthy all year for them. Wembanyama really has been healthy all year. So you look at, to your point, I think the best is yet to come for them. And they're in a very tumultuous Western Conference with several teams that are really trying to figure out how to get this thing going in the right direction. Either they were dealing with injuries, they haven't played as well, they made a trade that hasn't worked out the way they expected. Like, there's a lot of different teams we're going to get into. So San Antonio has an opportunity with some stability, everybody back and playing. They have now an opportunity to continue to just sort of chip away at it. I don't know if they can get as high as 6 at any point and avoid the play-in. They're most likely going to be playing at best, but I think that's incredibly impressive in Wemby's second year when you looked at what this team looked like a year ago.
Can this be a momentum night for the Spurs, though? This be a thing? Like, they've had a good year. They're surprising in the standings, where they are. But you go on Christmas and have a big win, and winning in Madison Square Garden against a Knicks team that's been on a roll. If you get that win, I feel like it could be almost a watershed moment where it's like, all right, now the second half of the season is all momentum.
I agree with that. I also agree this could be one of the, not that everybody doesn't know already how uniquely talented Wembanyama is, but imagine if Wembanyama does something outrageous on Christmas Day in the Garden and Spurs win that game. Like, putting the league on notice, like at a level that he really hasn't been able to this point. He didn't play in the postseason last year. Most of their games, really the entire year, but especially the second half of the year, didn't have a lot of significance other than his development. So now this is a moment, but probably the most high-profile game he's played, clearly, and you have an opportunity, and a lot of magical things have happened in the Garden on Christmas Day. That energy in that building is going to be unbelievable. If Wembanyama embraces that and puts up some monster stat line at San Antonio, win or lose, but if they win the game especially, and he does anything late, wow. I mean, you talk about a put the league on notice moment for Victor Wembanyama. That would be it. That'd be an opportunity to do it right there.
I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. The Spurs have the most to gain on Christmas Day for that very reason, is that they have a big performance. Wembanyama has a big performance. I just think we're talking about the Spurs a lot more for the rest of the year. And I don't mean you and I mean we, the basketball community. Just they get elevated up into a status where the novelty becomes, okay, maybe this team is actually building something. Do you have a player you want to shout out? We got to do our FanDuel weekly shout outs, and we're going to do one for every single game between the two teams. Is there anybody that you want to kind of give some shine to?
Let me give some shine to Stephon Castle.
Okay.
I just, he was an interesting pick for them. We talked about needing some point guard leadership. They had a couple picks very high. One of them was Dillingham, who ended up going to Minnesota. Stephon Castle is a guy that I love, and he hasn't necessarily played his basketball here late, but he's coming off a 4-game stretch that he was unbelievable. Last 3, he struggled a little bit, but he's just a guy that I'm very impressed with, man. He's physical. He loves to defend. I think he's got an unbelievable upside and ceiling if he can continue to grow as a shooter. Let's keep an eye on Stephon Castle and his contributions and any significance that he might play in this game on Christmas Day.
And this is why I think for teams like the Spurs, it's almost bigger than the Knicks. The Knicks are on TV a lot. They're in New York. Like, what they do, everybody's talking about. A guy like Castle, this is a chance for him to launch himself onto the big stage. So I agree with you. I do think the Knicks get this one, though. The Knicks are playing really good basketball. They won a handful in a row here. I think 3 in a row. And they've won a lot over their last 20 games. So I think that this is, if I were to predict a blowout, this one would be one of the higher ones on my list. Anything's possible, but I think the Knicks win this one.
Yeah, look, they've won 13 out of their last 17 games. So, they had a little bit of an adjustment period early in the year, getting used to, made a massive trade. They had a team that was really compelling last year. They make a big trade with a key piece. Their second best offensive player gets shipped out. You bring in another big, more versatile player in Karl Anthony Towns, but it takes some feeling out period. And for him, we talked about this earlier, or maybe we talked about it last week. We said, how great he's been. You and I in unison saying, give this guy a lot of credit, man, because he had some naysayers out there for different reasons about his game, his maturity level. He has embraced this moment. He's embraced the Garden. He's embraced the pressure of playing on a team that's got high expectations. And he has been just great. I mean, really, both ends of the floor. His defensive rebounding, his scoring. So look at how well they're playing right now. How well he is playing, particularly. A lot less usage out of Jalen Brunson on a nightly basis, which is the best thing that you can watch. I think if you're a Knicks fan, is not having to watch Jalen Brunson have to dribble the ball that much, to work that hard, to do what he does, to keep you in games. Towns has been the perfect pairing with Brunson and this group. So Knicks red hot coming in. Karl Anthony Towns has been great. And again, yeah, I mean, look, we talked about the Spurs having an opportunity here to really pound the gavel a little bit on like what they're coming. But for the Knicks, their expectation is to win a championship. Their expectation is to beat Boston or beat Cleveland, whoever's in front of them in the Eastern Conference, and get to the finals. They think they could do that this year. And it's the Spurs. I get it. You're not talking about, this isn't the Celtics. You're getting or Oklahoma City. You're getting San Antonio. I understand that. But still, it's how you play. And if they put together a really clean performance on both ends and they win this game handily, and Towns and Brunson click and they both play great and their role players are making threes, that Garden is rocking, it's gonna be a great tease for what could come later in the year in that building.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on here. We'll take a break, but we're breaking down every single game and every single team. And there's a lot of teams that are sort of at an inflection point. The next two teams to me, the Wolves and the Mavs, are absolutely at an inflection point. We'll talk about what they stand to gain and what's interesting about them on the other side. First, let me get ready to tackle all of the action. The NFL's playing and NBA on Christmas Day, so you can get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/AllNBA. You get a hunch, as Legs did at the stadium the other day. The Eagles scored 21 in the first quarter. He didn't panic. He knew his team was coming back. See, he had a hunch. If you have a hunch, you can make your bet right then and there. Never waste a hunch and make every moment matter with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and older, present in Colorado. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. You have a gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-522-4700. Also, want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style, and they probably have a style in your team's favorite colors. They got all kinds of stuff. They even have ski goggles, bass fishing goggles, and of course, all the regular styles of glasses for you. Those polarized shades. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. You head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off your polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here, segment 2 with Tim Legler. The Wolves and the Mavs. The Wolves, a little tumultuous right now. You've got Anthony Edwards complaining about officiating. Not long ago, he called out his team. They've been up and down. They're on the roller coaster. Then you have the Dallas Mavericks, who I predicted on our very last show is about to ascend to the 2 seed, of which they will remain for the rest of the year. So you know how I feel about this game. But nonetheless, it's a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. I think it'll be a battle. What stands out to you?
All right, let's start with Minnesota and build up to Dallas. So Minnesota, I mean, look, you went to the conference finals a year ago. You're basically a 500 team. Now they've won coming in, they've lost 2 in a row, 3 out of 5, right. But before that they won 4 straight. And they also had a very weird stretch here. I don't know, has this ever happened? Think any teams ever played 7 consecutive games against California teams? 7 games in a row against California teams, starting with Sacramento. Yeah. Then they got the Clippers twice, the Lakers, Warriors twice, and the Lakers again. Nuts what just happened with this team. But anyway, we know it's been a little bit of a rough go. They're just, a lot of things are different about this team. Julius Randle's a completely different player than Karl Anthony Towns. And I don't think he necessarily has played poorly. I just don't think that the fit has been quite as good. They haven't really been as good, I don't think, on either end. They've had some guys that missed some time that hurt them. DiVincenzo, we talked about, has struggled to really get going and have the impact as a supplemental shooter that they hoped he would have. So all things considered, Minnesota sitting here 10th in the West. They've won 6 out of 9, if you count that 4-game winning streak before they just dropped a few. So what do you think about Minnesota right now as we sit here? Are they better right now than they were 2 weeks ago? And like, what ultimately do you think is their ceiling going to be as they continue to clean this up and get more time together and get guys back and healthy and hopefully try to find their rhythm collectively? Because it has been a very inconsistent watch when you've taken in Timberwolves games.
They are the definition of a roller coaster season. You could throw the Nuggets in there, who went an entire month without winning or losing consecutive games. It was alternating. That's a roller coaster. But listen to this, Tim. They won 3 in a row, going back to the early November. Won 3 in a row, followed it up by losing 3 in a row. Won 2 in a row, followed it up by losing 4 in a row. Then won 4 in a row, and then won 2 in a row, lost 2 in a row. It's just they can't string together. They go on these runs, and then they go on prolonged losing streaks. So to me, you asked, what is the momentum? What is the direction? There is none. They've been doing this to where you feel like, okay, there it is. They figured it out, and then they look exactly like all of their worst problems.
This, to me, should not be a team taking 43s a night. I understand the league looks different. I don't think their personnel dictates that's what they should be doing. That's not, Anthony Edwards is shooting 42% from the three. Let's give him credit. You think, and we talked about this before, but I'm going to reiterate it. I don't think Anthony Edwards should be shooting 10 threes a night, getting to the line 4 times a game. I just don't think that's any sort of a good ratio to give you efficiency. I don't care how well he shoots it from out there. I think that he is a guy that can be really tough to stop downhill, and if he can do a better job of getting contact, getting to the line, make himself more efficient by having more 10 free throw nights, I think that helps them. It helps them set up their defense. It gives them just better shot quality. So I think that in general, they shoot too many threes. I think Anthony Edwards has fallen in love with the three a little bit too much because he's had some success. Look, if he was shooting 31%, I don't think he'd be taking 10 a night. I think he would have adjusted to that. But the fact that he made a lot early, he's now kind of in love with that shot because he can get it off whenever he wants. And I just don't think that's putting maximum pressure on teams defensively. And I think their whole group, I just think it's not playing to their strengths in a league, unfortunately, that I know that you need a lot of firepower every night to match the other team's 3-point totals. I do think there are teams that can be somewhere closer to that low to mid 30s, and that's playing to their strengths. They have more possessions that are quality. It helps their defense. It helps their efficiency offensively. I don't think Minnesota's really been that this year.
I'm interested. These teams haven't played since really early in the season, the 4th game of the year for both teams. There were different teams back then. Anthony Edwards went for 37 points, so he had it going, but the Mavericks got the win. I'm curious about the battle inside because, when I look at Dallas, they have some bigs that are a lob threat. They're bigs that I think still punish other bigs, traditional bigs. Well, Rudy Gobert is a big that can struggle in that stretch pick and roll. So that's what I'm kind of curious to watch is Rudy Gobert able to be effective in that game in a way that slows them down? Because if the Mavericks are getting 120 points, as they did earlier in the season in this matchup, they're going to win. But can the Timberwolves find a defensive answer for that? Then they'll have a chance.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And look, Dallas is a really tough team to defend, tough team to guard, and they've turned their season around the way they've played. And they've done it with missing guys, missing key guys, missing their stars on nights, and they've still been able to play well and win games. Dallas is rounding into what I expected them to be. They did not play well out of the gate. I put a lot of that in Luka's lap. He's turned a lot of that around, but their team is playing better, clicking better. Some of the new pieces have found their stride and figure out how to make a contribution every night. Very tough team to guard. This will be an ultimate challenge for Minnesota and Rudy Gobert. And you're asked to do a lot when you guard Dallas as a big with those number of ball screens and the threats that their two primary guys are coming off ball screens. You're asking your centers and your bigs to do an awful lot of ground coverage and still be able to protect the rim and get back for the lob threat and everything else. It's a tough challenge for Rudy Gobert. So, look, this is important. You said San Antonio had the most to gain on Christmas. If I recall what you said about the first game, I think the next two teams I would say that have a lot to gain would be Minnesota and Philly. because
Yeah,
Philadelphia's
Philly's a
got
good one.
Embiid back, and like just playing the Celtics, and if you got your 3 stars out there and you're somehow able to win that game up in Boston, that could make okay. I know their record is terrible. They got a lot of work to do to get back to a decent spot in the Eastern Conference standings, but at least it would serve notice. Like, this is kind of what we thought we could be if we had everybody at the start of the year. So I think Minnesota also is a team. This could be a real confidence booster to them. If you go into Dallas and you're able to get that win against a team that has won 13 out of their last 16 games, that could be a confidence boost for Minnesota as well, and kind of, hit that reset button and like, hey, remember who we were last year? We have a chance here to gain some grounds in the West, and that would be a good place to start.
I think, Luka's been out. I expect him to be back for that game, but he's been out. I think let's put him aside for a moment, because of course he could have a big game. If you had to pick one of Anthony Edwards or Kyrie Irving, because I think the story of the sneaky story of the Mavs season so far has been Kyrie. He's been phenomenal, and he's carried them in a lot of these games. So who do you think has a better chance of not just being the better player in this game, but the best player on Christmas Day? That means you had a real breakout performance, Kyrie Irving or Anthony Edwards.
Man, to me, honestly, I don't want to ever sit on the fence on anything. I think that's a flat out toss up, because Kyrie Irving is made for moments like that. Like that, I mean, he's the kind of guy that would have a little extra juice on a game like that. Yeah. With that eyeballs on you, he can be so electric in those types of situations, but so can Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards, is going to play determined. He's going to play with great intensity, and like, he wants to win badly. So he'll show up in the right mindset. To me, that's a coin toss. I would not be surprised either way. Kyrie goes for 35 in that game. Not going to be shocked. Wouldn't be shocked if Anthony Edwards had 40. I think they're both that level offensively. The question is, for Anthony Edwards, how do you play? And do you play more according to your strengths? Or are you taking shots that they want you to take? That's going to be the challenge for him in that game, and to have that kind of, huge Christmas Day and make the all Christmas Day team top 5 performers of the day. Does he have a chance to do that? Yeah, of course he does.
Well, I'm going to take the shout out on this one from you, Legs. I'm going to steal it from you, because I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Quentin Grimes. This guy, Quentin Grimes, he went the first 11 games of the season. He did not score in double figures. His minutes were a little bit spotty. There it is. He was a little bit spotty, but in the last 16 games, he scored in single figures just 5 times. So now double figures is the norm. 20-point games are becoming more the norm. He had 20 last night or 2 nights ago against the Clippers, where he shot 7 of 8. He has been efficient. He has been effective. He plays great defense, and he has been a guy he's one of the reasons I'm buying the Mavs, is he's just worked his way into the rotation. And so he gets an opportunity now to be on Christmas Day, and this is kind of a big stage for him too.
Stayed with it. He wasn't really impactful to start the year. You look, in fact, didn't have a double-digit game his first 10 games for them. Minutes were a little bit sporadic there as well, and I think they were kind of waiting for him to break out a little bit. And he's been really, really good ever since that stretch, man. And now he's starting to make shots. He's a very good defender, committed defender. They need all of those role players to be able to make shots, not just Clay, because they get the shots, whatever shots they want. And typically, if Luka gives it up to you, he's expecting you to shoot the ball, because by the time he gives it up, it's because whatever he was looking for himself is exhausted. So now I've done my job. I've drawn 2 and had the whole defense shift to my side. Okay, when that ball comes out, and he doesn't care how many times you shoot it, but you've got to step into those things, be confident. And Quentin Grimes has been much better over the last 15, 18 games than he was the start of the year.
Do you remember last Christmas? Luka Doncic, 50 points, 15 rebounds, or 15 assists. He had a 15-point, 15-assist game. So talk about big game performance. So I didn't put him in the list, because of course he's he's maybe the most likely to have this breakout game on Christmas, but I had to put him to the side to make it more fair. All right, let's move on to your game. Sixers at Celtics. I did say the Spurs, but when you mentioned the Sixers, you're right. They might have the most to gain, because at the very moment, their season is not very promising. Things haven't been good. A little bit of momentum since Embiid has been able to come back somewhat consistently. They're sitting at 9-17, and I think you're right. You beat the Celtics on Christmas Day. Embiid has a big performance. I do feel like it would be an official reset for the Sixers.
Yeah, look, their season hasn't really begun yet. And as I always draw my correlations to football, the pressure's been off because of how good the Eagles have been. Although my Commanders got them yesterday, baby. And I was up in there. I was up in Northwest Stadium watching
That's a
that
good
thing.
game.
My boy
That's a
Dave
good
Daniels,
game.
5 touchdown passes. Now, look, I understand Eagles fans, and there were a lot of them at that stadium, including the guy that I took to the game, my close friend who's an Eagles fan. There was a lot of Eagles fans in there, and they were talking a lot, as they usually do. Very quiet when they left the stadium. But the one thing they kept reminding everybody was that Jalen Hurts got knocked out of the game, and he did. Okay, so that's enough on that game. But bottom line is we're 10-5, 1 win away from making the playoffs. I'm super excited.
Okay.
Absolutely. I got a helmet right here in my office. I'm part of this team. But here's the thing: the pressure's been off. It'll pick up here as we go. But look, what can you do? I have had nothing but sympathy for Nick Nurse all year. What is he supposed to do? Trying to go out there and win games when you have had almost no time with your top 3 players together, virtually. Right. And now Jared McCain gets hurt. A guy that was a breakout rookie. You lose him. So you're still dealing with some injuries, but obviously it revolves around the top 3 guys. They haven't had them. And if they get them all on Christmas Day and you get the Boston Celtics, and you get a much better idea what that would look like down the road. Hopefully, again, also what would be important in this game, Adam, it's important for Paul George to play good in a moment like this. I think Paul George is a guy you brought in for the bigger games. And obviously the playoffs is where you start with that, but it's also the bigger regular season games. And that's what this is going to be on Christmas Day. A lot of eyeballs on you. Paul George averaged 16 points a game on 41% shooting. He has played 16 games. So, he's been out there for a little more than half. It's important for Paul George to play well for them and show them that, hey, man, this is what you brought me in to do. It's games like this. It can't all fall in lap of Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. You brought me in to do this and have big moments in these kind of spots. And so this is a great test for Philadelphia and a great opportunity. And hopefully, last I looked, everybody was supposed to play. Hopefully everybody's going to be out there.
And, for the Celtics, obviously, I think they've been the best team in the NBA this season, even though they don't have the best record. You shout out the Cavs. They've done some good stuff. Not trying to discount them, but the reigning champs, to me, at their best, just looks like the best punch in the NBA. And this is the marquee game. I mean, this one and the one right after it, they put it in the top time slots when most people are going to be watching. So this is also a chance for Boston to kind of go out and show why they're so good. This another game that has blowout potential here. I think more on Boston's side than on Philly. I just would be shocked if Philly blew out Boston. They don't get blown out too often, but the Celtics blow a lot of teams out, man. And when they get rolling, it goes. So, that's another thing about this game. I hope for your sake, that's not the case. I hope we get something compelling, but Philadelphia could be a big win if they get it. And it could be a bad loss if they go out there and just look completely outclassed.
Yeah. Look, you saw they've won 13 out of 16 coming in as well. And you saw the response the other night. This is the kind of team that they are. They lost that game at home to Chicago. And they had that, one of those back-to-backs, same team, first game at home, and then they go to Chicago. The first home game, right, that was the game that both teams combined for 108 threes in that game. Boston took 56 threes in that game, made 14. They made themselves easy to guard, and Chicago beat them. And so you know what did they do? Boston, they've done this before over the last several years when they get this kind of opportunity. They go right into Chicago 2 days later, and they blow them out on their floor. And that's a good sign. That's what a team is supposed to do that's on that level. You didn't play particularly well at home. You didn't play to your strengths. You made it easier to guard. And so now Missoula had a very stern message for them after that game. They go into Chicago, they blow them out. We know how good the Celtics are. I think this game on Christmas Day, for me, much more of a sign about what Philadelphia is, what they could potentially be, than anything about Boston. We know what Boston is. We know where we expect them to be at the end of the season. Philadelphia is trying to figure out if they're going to be able to get into this thing. And so that would be a great place to start.
Do you have a shout out for one of these two teams? I think this is the toughest teams to do shout out for. Boston, everybody's known. They get plenty of shout outs. 76ers, there's nobody that deserves one. So which direction are you going to go here?
Let's go with Payton Pritchard, man. Why not? Like this guy's been shooting the ball as well as anybody in the league coming off the bench. he's catapulted himself into a guy that's going to get some consideration for sixth man of the year if he keeps this up, because how good he's been. And like it's watching the arc of his career has been really interesting, because he just continues to chip away. And he finally got some money, and look what he's turned it into. Career high, almost 29 minutes a game, 16 points a game off the bench, 48% from the field, 43 from the three, taking 9 a night, 84, plays great defense on the ball. Payton Pritchard has given them another weapon, as if they didn't have enough. So I'm going to give the shout out to Payton Pritchard. And, on a year in which he's playing this well, what better place than to go, again, really kind of make that statement about how far you've come as a player than to do that on Christmas Day with that many eyeballs on you against an Eastern Conference rival.
Man, the more I think about this, it's just such a big game for Philly. They need something to latch onto to propel them. We talked about the Spurs, obviously. The same thing. They could have some momentum. It's weird, but 9-17, and you can still get momentum. The funny thing is these two teams play each other tonight, San Antonio and Philadelphia. So that game almost is a prelude to, all right, which one of you is going to carry momentum? Because both of them could use it going into the second half. All right, let's move on. Lakers at the Warriors. Lakers, a little nice 3-game win streak since LeBron James returned. They've even played some good defense over that stretch. 2 of those wins against the Sacramento Kings. Take that for what you will. The Kings have been reeling right now, so bad so that they're looking maybe to trade their star player. And then before that, they got a very good win over a Memphis team that had been red hot. So they have some momentum coming into it. The Warriors, another roller coaster team here. What is interesting about this game?
Lakers sit here currently 6th in the West. They're half a game up on the Warriors for that last, non-play-in spot at the 6th seed. So this is an important game because tiebreakers are going to play into this potentially later. Neither one of these teams, Lakers have won 3 straight, you're right, and they got things straightened out a little bit here since LeBron came back, but they have lost 8 out of 14 overall. So, you look at some little microcosm look at things, and you look at a more of a macro look at it. Overall, I think it's been a pretty inconsistent year. I think it's been a pretty frustrating year for them at times. They still have 2 of the best players in the league. Their defense has not been that good. On some nights, their 3-point shooting gives them a chance. Some nights it abandons them. So I don't know what they are yet. And I think they're still trying to figure it out. And they have a brand new coach that they're still kind of working things through with, and the communication lines and everything that you do as a star player with your head coach, that takes time to try to figure out what you guys ultimately want to be and can be as a team. And so the Lakers, I think, it's been a little bit of an inconsistent ride. The Warriors have lost 9 out of 12. They got out of the gate, got all that praise, and I was certainly right there at the top of the list. And I saw them give an incredibly impressive performance sitting courtside against Memphis. That defense was swarming and fast. And Curry didn't play particularly well that night, and they still won pretty easily going away in the fourth quarter. I was very impressed with what they brought, the number of guys they're playing, their depth, number of guys that can contribute, and it's just been rough sledding, man, ever since. They've had some wild games where they couldn't guard a single soul, defense totally optional. They've had other games where the offense failed them. So they're a team right now that's reeling. And, getting a win against the Lakers on Christmas Day with everybody watching that game, yeah, I guess it could be a boost depending on how it plays out. That could be a shot in the arm. But at the same time, I think of that team like Golden State and the Lakers, like either one of these teams with the makeup of their rosters, I don't know that that's any sort of a real boost. Like both of these teams have done great things in their past. Both of these teams want to be much more relevant in the second half of the year. I don't know that it gives either of them a huge boost because of just what they're made up of and how much they've won. So, I don't know that a game like this will, but look, if it could be, if anything, I think Golden State's got more to gain in this game.
Yeah, but just because they've been reeling, that's the thing is the Warriors look like they're falling apart. And what was that number you just said? Like 13 of 16 or something like that?
They lost 9 out of 12.
9 out of 12. And so it only gets worse, with every loss you stack up. So absolutely, they need to stabilize here and to start collecting some wins. What I'll say about this game, because like we all know, the NBA slate, it's some about teams, but it's a lot about players. Nobody's more experienced with Christmas Day games than LeBron James and Steph Curry. So when we talk about who is more likely for big game performances, even though I don't think that they're in the conversation for best player in the NBA anymore, you put them on that stage, I think those guys go into tier 1, most likely to have the game of Christmas Day.
No, I totally agree with that, man. And look, they put this game in this spot going into the year because of the LeBron Curry matchup and like what they have meant to this league. Um, over the last 15 to 20 years between the two guys and the rivalry that they had. And so it still carries a lot of weight. And it's that time of day. A lot of people by that time, you're finished your meal, you finished with the presents, you finally sit back on the sofa, kick up, grab an adult beverage, and you're going to watch some NBA. That's why that game is slotted where it is.
Yeah.
And so let's hope that they give us, another memorable, epic moment, because you don't know how many more times Steph Curry and LeBron James will be on the same court together. You just don't know how many more of those we have. So let's just enjoy that one for what it's going to bring us and reminisce a little bit about what those two players have meant to this league.
Do you have any shout outs for either one of these teams?
I don't know if I have a shout out for
I know this one's tough, to be honest with you.
It really is. It's tough. And it's the next game as well, man. I was thinking about Denver, Phoenix. I'm like, who am I shouting out on these two teams? The way things have gone for them. Look, the Lakers, and look, there was a lot of mystery surrounding LeBron. Like when he left the team for the Minnesota game, nobody knew exactly what was going on. They come back, beat Memphis, then they get back-to-back games against the Sacramento Kings, feeling better about themselves. It's amazing what even a 2 or 3 game winning streak in the NBA does just for overall for team morale. But let's give D'Angelo Russell a shout out.
Wow,
D'Angelo Russell, right? Let's give D'Lo.
D'Angelo Russell was plus 1,800 on FanDuel for the shout out today. He was plus 1,800.
There you go, man.
Did not think that was going to happen. Austin Reaves also been playing well a little bit here lately, scored about 20 a game. So but you're right. D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reaves, they need a third person and they kind of alternate about which one it's going to be. So I think they're both good. We'll go to our last game now. Nuggets Suns. You want to talk about two teams that are reeling. This is what's funny about this Christmas Day slate. There's no Milwaukee Bucks who have been playing extremely well, obviously the Cup winners. You got no Thunder who deserve to be on there when you just talk about, who are the good teams that deserve to be marquee matchups. No Cavs, who obviously deserve a spot. What you have is a bunch of teams that have been established for a while who are a big draw, but a lot of teams that are reeling. Lakers, Warriors, reeling. Sixers, reeling. Wolves, reeling. So then you get Nuggets Suns, and these two teams, man, Denver has won 4 of their last 5 legs, and I couldn't feel worse about it. They've won 4 of 5. None of them have been, or really early on, there were some convincing ones. The last 3 or 4 have been very unconvincing, including an overtime win against this like G League Pelicans team. So I don't know about them, but then you go to the Suns and the same thing. They've lost a couple in a row. They were on a losing streak without Kevin Durant. They get him back and they're still losing. So both of these teams right now are headed in the wrong direction. They both need this game. And by the way, they play tonight and then they play again on Christmas Day, which we hate.
More back-to-backs around the league. I mean, it's unbelievable how many back-to-backs are taking place here over the last couple of weeks. It's all over the place. It's prevalent. Yeah, well, man, I don't even know.
Hold up. Just to complain real quick on this matchup. You want the Christmas Day to feel something special, but if you play the same team right before, does that mean tonight both teams should punt? They should rest their guy, what have you. And then on top of that, I don't know about Phoenix. I know Denver, that'll be the 3rd game in 4 nights will be the Christmas game, which obviously that's the toughest thing to do, with travel in between every game. So really weird to make this a marquee matchup when you've kind of ruined the opportunity for it to be a good game.
I agree. I almost feel like part of the criteria for the Christmas Day games should be, okay, let's, you go into and this is done obviously months and months ago when they start looking at this stuff. You look at who you want to play. Okay. Right. The 10 teams, whatever they may be, the league decides they want these teams to play. Now you're trying to figure out who's going to play who amongst that group. I think what you should try to do then, once you come up with what you think the matchups you want to be, I think that you should make sure those teams haven't seen each other in like at least a month.
Yeah,
like since the beginning of the year, or in some cases, hey man, this is pretty cool. This is like one of 2 times if it's an East-West matchup, or if it's teams that, because we see this all the time, like teams will play each other not at all till February, then 3 times in 9 days. Like we see that happen. So if that's the case, if you're the league, and I know this is a lot goes into that. It's very difficult with all the stuff that's going on in these arenas to find those dates, but like I think that would be cool. To your point, I like that. Like we haven't seen these guys either all year or not since the beginning of the year, and it's been a while. Rather than we just 48 hours ago, this is what it looked like. So I agree with that.
Yeah. Nonetheless, though, man, both of these teams, like they have had moments where you're like, okay, are they getting it together? They look like they could be something, but they're both of those teams right now look like teams you would be selling. The Suns are all the way down in the 11 spot right now. I mean, everything's all bunched up at 14 and 13, and the Nuggets in the 5 seed. But as I mentioned, Legs, unconvincing wins and a horrible loss at Portland. So right now, I just feel like whichever team loses, they play each other twice. If Denver wins both of those, Phoenix is in a tight spot because now you're firmly outside the play-in. If Phoenix wins both games, then you look at Denver and you go, they haven't played good basketball in a month. They haven't had a convincing win in a month, and they just dropped these 2 games. So I feel like this is 2 teams hanging on. It's like they're hanging on. There's one space left on the life raft, and they're both fighting for it. And one of them's going to get kicked off.
No, I agree with that. But I mean, look, I don't think there's any comparison between the 2 teams, and just in terms of how solid they should feel. Denver should be feeling much better about themselves than Phoenix right now. I mean, I know Phoenix is in a long stretch, but just because they've still got Nikola Jokic, who's been healthy and playing every night and maybe playing the best basketball of his career. So when you got that to me, okay, every night you run out, yeah, there's some other things you're trying to figure out with this team. Phoenix, they've had a difficult time just getting their guys on the court.
Yeah.
And now Durant comes back, and you think, you and I said last week, we said this might be the most interesting team in the league over the next month because of what they just went through without Durant, how good they were at the start of the year with Durant. He comes back. They lose to Indiana and Detroit. Yeah, they lose 2 games, and he plays great. So I'm like, I don't, maybe, okay, obviously you're not going to put it on him, but like, man, they've got a lot to figure out. To figure out. And here's the other thing. Think about this. They have never really figured it out since they've had this group together. That's the other thing. Like, Denver has played really good basketball with their core guys. At some point, they have had that. Phoenix really hasn't had that for a long stretch. Certainly, playoff success. So they're still trying to, since they put this together with the Durant, Booker, and Beal, they're still trying to just find any sort of momentum other than the little stretch they had at the very beginning of the year this year. And, you look at last year, what a disappointing season, disappointing end, getting swept by Minnesota in the first round. Like, they haven't even had a taste, really, of what this could be. Denver at least has known what it feels like to win with their top guys. And like I said, Jokic is arguably playing the best he's ever played. So I think Denver should feel a little bit better than Phoenix.
The reason I'm going to disagree with you, and obviously I'm very close to this Denver team, maybe too close in this example, but last night, Legs, the Nuggets go down to New Orleans, missing Zion and Ingram, and just a horrible team. 5 total wins in the entire year. And Denver struggles. Jokic going up against xmas, very good young player, but a rookie. He doesn't go into the paint till the 4th quarter. Just doesn't even go in there. Gets the ball, throws it, to somebody else. And it was almost like he was protesting. And if you look at his last handful of games, he was phenomenal for the first 25 games. Last 3 games, it just looks like he's not putting in the effort. So I don't know. Is it fatigue because he's been carrying the team? I don't think so. When you watch him play, and then, of course, the 4th quarter rolls around. He goes down. He scores 15 points in a row, just going to the rim, almost like I could have done this all along, but I'm not doing it. It feels to me like Jokic is almost protesting his team right now because he's so unhappy with the way they've played and the roster that they've built. I don't know if that's what he's doing, but when you watch him go against xmas and not step inside the 3-point line to the 4th quarter, it's hard to think there's any other explanation.
Well, let me tell you something. If you protest, if you're in protest mode and you go for 34-6, I mean, that's pretty. I hear what you're saying. I know hear what you're saying. And you and I actually talked about this off the air about it. You were just like, man, oh man, there's just this vibe and this feel about this team.
I've never seen it like this.
No, I know. You've been saying it. You've been saying it all year. You're closer to it than I am. Certainly. I think, you're seeing every game and you're in this city where the pulse is, and you know what it feels like right now when they just, they had that taste of a championship still fresh for them. And you're like, man, is that all we're going to get? We were a 1 championship team. Like, that's what we were. It felt like more than that when they won it. And that wasn't very long ago. And now you're in this situation where I kind of feel like you don't know exactly what you're going to see out of them from night to night basis. But I hear you on Jokic, because when he's in 100% in a certain mindset, he's going to be in the paint a lot. He's going to dominate you with physicality as well as skill. And apparently that was lacking the other night against the Pels.
Well, let me just give you their schedule here recently. So they lose to the Wizards right on December 7th. They get a win against the shorthanded Atlanta team, and they get a really good win against the Clippers, who had been good, and they blow them out. Then they go up 41-21 at the end of the first quarter against Sacramento, but have to come back in the fourth. They blew a 20-point lead against the lowly Kings. Then they lose to Portland, who's one of the worst teams in the NBA, and then they trail by 17 points to New Orleans until they decide to win it late. So I just look at that 2-week stretch and I go, there's one good win in there. There's 2 horrible losses, and then there's 2 wins that they were lucky to get against horrible teams. And I just look at that and I go, yes, they've won these games, but I'm worried about Denver. They have not looked good for over a month. They have not looked like a good basketball team. But to your point, it's better to win than it is to lose. And the Suns, you could say the same thing about them, only they're losing the games. So that's a little bit worse. But I feel like this game right here, man, is huge for both teams. The 2-game stretch is huge for both teams. Is there a shout out? You said this was a hard one. I'm going to really push you because I'll come up with one if you need, but there's not an obvious one.
Oh, yeah, I'm giving Nikola Jokic one. I know that you just said what you said about him, but I'm just marveling at what this guy's doing. It's incredible to think that with all the MVPs and what we've seen out of him, right, and a championship and a Finals MVP and everything he's done, that I still feel like he still amazes me every night, despite the fact that there are some tough circumstances right now with this team, and they're not where they want to be. And if you want to be one of the all-time greats, you want to win more than one championship. So I know how badly he wants that to happen. Maybe he doesn't have as much belief that they have what it takes right now, or they're going to be able to do that with this group. But I'm marveling at this guy's greatness, man. And I'm glad that, that's how you finish the night off on Christmas Day, is potentially watching Nikola Jokic as the last thing to put you in a good mood before you go to bed at the state of the game because of how good this guy is.
I'm so curious who's going to be the player of the day on Christmas, because there are a lot of stars. Wembanyama, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Joel Embiid, maybe Maxey, Tatum, Brown, LeBron, Steph, Jokic, Kevin Durant. There's just a lot of guys that could go off. Do you want to give a hot take prediction on who you think is going to be the player of Christmas Day? I think Luka going for 15 points, 15 assists last year makes me think it's probably just him, but there's a lot of candidates.
I'm going with I'll pick one guy from each game. So
okay.
Make it my all Christmas day, day.
One
team.
from each one. I like it.
Yeah. I'm going Jalen Brunson.
Okay. He had a great game last night or 2 nights ago.
I'm going with Luka.
Solid. Good guess.
I am going with Jaylen Brown.
Really? Jaylen Brown. Okay.
I am going with LeBron.
Yeah, that's a good pick. He's made
Anthony
for this.
Davis would be a good one too. I think it's going to be one of those 2 guys that kind of steals the show in that game. And I'm going with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick too. He's been on fire. Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. Let us know in the comments below who you think is going to shine brightest on Christmas. Should be a good slate. By the way, what do you think of the NFL taking Christmas Day? Putting some games on there. I feel like that's kind of a storyline as well. The NBA, Christmas has always been an NBA day, and the NFL has looked at it and said, we don't mind. We'll take that. Wednesday game, a little weird. We'll do it.
Yeah, no, it is. It is kind of weird. It's the one thing, and they did this last year as well. So yeah, it's something that the NBA kind of liked, most years having it to themselves. So some of your scheduling wise, it has to be played on Christmas if you're the NFL. Just has to if it's a Saturday or Sunday. But it's interesting when they kind of go out of their way to inject themselves into it. Look, I think the NBA is in a place right now with style of play and with the number of guys that have been out. I think people that love the league and love basketball are kind of waiting till later in the year to really buy in with a full emotional investment. So I think right now it still is very much about the NFL. I know Christmas Day, we want that to be a huge statement day for the league. It's, you got your opening couple of weeks are so interesting because the trades went down, new coaches, rookies, all that stuff. And then and then you get into the grind of the regular season schedule and you're turning in a lot of nights guys aren't playing, or you're watching games with 100 threes taken. And so I think fans right now are like, we know what this product ultimately will be. And later in the year, that's the best it gets if you love basketball, is March, April, May, June. And we'll be there to watch. And when guys get a little bit more bought into playing every night, when the stakes are raised a little bit, I think they're going to get there. But I think right now, the people are a little bit more invested in The NFL, certainly the college football playoff, expanding to 12 teams this year, I think has created more interest around that as well. So I think the NBA, it'd be great if we can get 5 games on Christmas. We're not going to get them all that are close, but it'd be nice if we did get some incredible performances from the guys we've been talking about and some really great finishes, and remind everybody what this league looks like when stars play and the stakes are raised and it means a little bit more to them. And that's what we could get potentially on Wednesday. And I certainly hope I get that in Boston for that Philly-Boston game.
I hope the players recognize how important Christmas is for that reason that you said. This is a showcase to the world. This is what our league is about. And if you get 3 or 4 blowouts on Christmas Day, it's like, this is what our game's about. You never know who's going to show up, either physically, literally show up, or just, show up and give their best effort. So I hope we get good games with players that care, some intensity, some rivalries. And then lastly, I'll ask you, and I'll ask the chat this as well. Which team got most snubbed should be on Christmas Day that's not? If you could only pick one.
It's got to be Oklahoma City, without question.
Yeah, because they're probably the second best team in the NBA.
Oklahoma City needed to be in this game, and I would have found a way to match up Oklahoma City and Dallas. That would have been the game. I would have been seeking out and hunting. And look, obviously going into the season, mini Dallas looked great on paper. They played in the conference finals a year ago. But looking at it now, no, I'd rather see OKC Dallas. And honestly, Minnesota, the season that they have had, I know Anthony Edwards can be electric. Right. That probably should be maybe the Bucks or honestly the Houston Rockets. If you just based on how you've played to this point, but Houston, I think right now, not necessarily the marquee star that the league wants in these pairings, in these matchups. You want both stars and great games. And if you got a little juice because of the rivalry, that's great too. In the case of Philly, Boston, I think that exists. Lakers, Golden State exist a little bit on that level. But yeah, Oklahoma City to me, man, like that's best record in the Western Conference a year ago, best record in the Western Conference now. We know that that's a team that they can get to the finals. And to not be on part of the top 10 team package is a little bit bizarre. Maybe they didn't want to, do them a disservice and say travel halfway across the country and play at noon in the Garden. Maybe that's why. Maybe that was going to be their
slot. That would have been the game, though.
Yeah, that would have been. That would have been fun, man. Shea and Brunson, that would have been fun. But maybe they felt like, hey, you know what? You're above that. We don't want to do that to you. We'll do that to a younger team and a younger star, or San Antonio, less accomplished team. Send them there, but because we got to get Wembanyama in there some way. So I don't know where the matchup would have been, but I would have gone Oklahoma City, Dallas probably, and dropped Minnesota.
I think I would have gone Milwaukee as the most snubbed personally. And some of this is momentum. I mean, obviously they started terribly, but in some of it's momentum. But Giannis is still, as we've talked about on this very show, has an argument for best player alive. I guess Shea does as well, but Giannis really has that argument for best player alive. So for him to not be a part of the marquee, and then you have Damian Lillard as well. It just, that one is
right. Let me ask you this, and it sounds like you would have been in favor of it, and I think this would have been fun if that last game, you gave Denver the home game. Okay. Right, because you could tip later, East Coast time in Denver, and made that Milwaukee Denver, and you get
That's a great matchup. That's a great matchup. Giannis versus Jokic. You have a little, both from the Balkan region of Europe. So you
you made that. Well, no, they had to make Lakers Golden State that time slot for a specific reason. So
it could be the late game.
Yeah,
make it the late game. I mean, I think there's ways you could have done it. I mean, to be honest with you, Lakers always have to be on national television. I don't need to see them. I don't even need to see the Warriors. I love Steph. I've enjoyed the Warriors. Christmas, it's not your Christmas.
Well, looking at it now, if I could just create it based on what we know, and like we have flex scheduling, and here I am 2 days before Christmas, and I could change all this, which is obviously absurd. If I could, here's what it would look like: Boston and the Knicks, either building. Boston probably would deserve to have that game at home, honestly. So
but MSG is always special on Christmas.
The Garden's got that special vibe. So Boston, Knicks, drop the Spurs. Then I would go OKC, Dallas, probably in OKC, but with same time zone, so whatever.
Build the rivalry, build it up, man. Yeah. Build that rivalry.
Then I would go Cleveland. If I'm going to go Boston, Knicks, I guess you'd go Philly, Cleveland. Okay. I don't know if that game has a lot of national interest, but I think that you want to see the Sixers and Embiid, and Cleveland's been unbelievable. They deserve to be there. Lakers, Golden State, I guess then you get Milwaukee, Denver. That's probably how you would go.
There you go. All right. Apologies to the Suns. You got booted out of there. Shouldn't have got on a losing streak. All right. We have some super chats to get to. What do we got? Jay Money says, pod idea. What about a collab episode with Kenny Beecham? He's great. He's a very beloved hoops YouTuber and has appeared on ESPN First Take a couple of times. Look, man, if he would do it, we would do it. So Kenny, get with us, man. He's great YouTuber. Does a variety of different things. I don't know if you've seen him, Legs, but he's really talented. Does a really variety of different types of content. What else we got? Psycho Blue says, B-Ball Cthulhu wants Adam to know that he's looking forward to a good old-fashioned Blake Street bum fight between our sagging teams. That is the Suns and the Nuggets is a bum fight. Man, that's tough. It's kind of true, though. It's kind of true.
Look,
what else do we have?
You know, even though both those teams struggling, man, and it's the last game of the night. I mean, think about what potentially you could get if you get like 40 out of Durant. You get, you know, a 35 point, 20 rebound, 13 assist game out of Jokic, man. Like, okay, sign me up.
Yeah. 100%, man. You could get a great game. Who knows? We got Donnie who says, I think Kyrie should get the All-Star nod this year. I'm a Luka fan, but he clearly hasn't had the best start. But Kyrie has been balling. I don't know.
No, listen, real quick on that. I agree with you. Kyrie Irving's been incredible this year. And look, here's the thing, though. If you want to get both guys in the game, I don't know, man. If right now they're on pace to win 52 games, it's a good year. But like I challenged that before the year. Like, you really want to make a statement for Luka for MVP? Yep. Get that thing up closer to 60, man. And right now they're not there. Now look, lately they have been. So if you took the start out, they probably would be on that pace. So let's see if they can do it. You got some time. If you're Kyrie Irving, you got some time to make your case for that. But it's possible. Like, if they just continue to win games, they go on another 8-game winning streak, 10-game before the All-Star game. Kyrie Irving keeps playing this way, he's got a great chance to get in.
I think you think of, or a lot of people think of Dallas as Luka, MVP caliber player. Kyrie is like down this list of something, almost like he's Jamal Murray or something. He's not. He's phenomenal. He's capable of carrying that team when Luka's out or when Luka's playing bad. He's a really, really, really good second star. Almost as good as any second star that's in the NBA right now. He's been that good for them. I think that's it on Super Chats. So let's hit that outro music. We are off for the next 3 days. We get to spend a little time with families. Legs going to be on the road, obviously calling that Sixers-Boston game. And we hope you guys enjoy your break. We're going to be back on Friday recapping not only the Christmas Day games, but also the Thursday games as well. So we're going to take a little bit break here. I hope you guys enjoy your break as well. Make sure you're subscribed. Let us know in the comments below what you think about who was snubbed from Christmas and who's going to be the standout player on Christmas Day. I'm curious what the crowd thinks of that. And hit that like button for us on the way out. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Y'all silly like the mayor.